episode of Wards of the State podcast. Y'all are just amazing. Like, I really do appreciate the platform that we've been able to share. The last episode that I recorded, this girl found me on Instagram because y'all know I started kind of transferring my content over to Instagram when we had the TikTok ban scare, but we don't really know what's happening with that. And recorded the episode, but then after recording, she shared with me that my platform was the first time that she heard someone speak up about the atrocities that happens to children, but also sh- gives alternatives and gives a solution, or at least some paths towards a solution. I'm just one person and I don't know all of the solutions to all of the problems we have in the child welfare system. I just want to encourage everybody to listen and to learn and to ask for reform, whether that be for adoption reform, foster care reform, societal reform when it comes to benefits and resources that are offered to first and birth parents. I just really appreciate that we are able to create a platform like this, and I appreciate all the listeners and all the support that we get from you guys. Please continue to share this podcast with your family and friends. We are now doing the live episodes on YouTube, so you can watch the video episodes there as well. But we really just want to make sure that you guys just listen to us. So I appreciate all the reviews. Make sure you guys are still leaving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star rating and reviews on Apple Podcasts, as well as subscribing to us on YouTube and Spotify. But without further ado, we have our next lived experience person who's going to kind of share their story. Hi, Jasmine. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I am fantastic. We've been doing a lot of content today, so I think you're my last appointment for the day for content. So I'm excited, but I'm really ready to hear your story. And I'm so sorry for missing our last appointment. We had technical issues. I was like, "Where's the link?" The link didn't get sent. But I'm so happy that we were able to get you rescheduled so we can hear your story. So just start from the beginning. Start from how you ended up in the external child welfare system.
I think that's a great place to start because that's exactly where I thought was a great place to start. So I had a really hard home life experience. Um, didn't grow up around a lot of money. Um, with my parents, my father was a pedophile. He he human trafficked his own children. He was ended up the court case leaded to him finding out he had human trafficked over 100 women. I don't know if it was him personally or had taken responsibility of all the other people involved. um but for years it was so hard to like almost prove that in court. It's not an easy thing to prove in court. So I was always told, oh, I don't believe you, I don't believe you, until it came to the evidence. And then other people were like, oh yeah, but did he deserve to go in jail? He had autism, he didn't know better.
Autism.
Yes.
Continue.
No, they said because he had autism, like
I'm
they tried to
sorry,
use that as an argument
I
that he didn't
accidentally
know what he
human
was doing.
trafficked people because I have autism.
They
I
claimed
That's a
he did not
first.
know better and he did not have
That's a.
social cues or whatever or whatnot.
Do you need social cues to know not to human traffic?
And the violence involved is insane. So I don't know. Um, but that was the biggest argument with me and my family on this whole thing. But I ended up being put in care at the age of 12. So it's a hard age when you're 12. A lot of parents in foster care want little babies and whatnot. And that's what they go into foster care for, and not looking for older teens. I was passed around a few foster homes. My first one was really shitty. The parent was an alcoholic.
Mm.
One of my foster sisters overdosed and she was unconscious. And this foster parent takes her finger and drags her around the mouth by her two fingers. That was her response. And she worked at a hospital. She should have known what she was doing. But she was saying she was trying to make him throw up or whatnot. And it was a disgusting scene. And that's something I'll remember forever. But then the thing that ended up getting me out of the home was a police report that was made. She beat one of her childs out of her sleep because she went to New York City. She was 19 years old. This was her own child. But she came back from the city, I guess, drunk or whatever. But she had no room to talk. She was drunk herself coming back from the bar. I remember hearing her like drunkenly talking on the phone at like 2 in the morning. I went back to sleep. Then I woke up to screaming and yelling. Um, I got between the altercation because like, I was at 13 at this point in the home, and I was in my house, the older kid who actually did something about the abuse when it would happen to my sisters. So I felt like when knives were brought out in the situation, the foster parent brought out a knife, the sister brought out a knife. When they were brought out, I got between it because even though I was so small at the time, in my brain, I was so big and grown because I was
Mhm.
always like taking care of and protecting my sisters from what was going on.
Mhm.
So then I guess one of the neighbors called the police. The police showed up. It de-escalated from there. But of course, foster care gets all the reports and stuff. Funny thing I've learned now talking to my biological mother is that during that situation when I was removed, when my mom asked for information, they said that I got removed because she drank a wine cooler.
Now, speak of your mom, because you didn't. Where was your mom during the removal?
So my mom, she let everything happen. My father got arrested. My mom couldn't really do much to get us back at that point. She tried her best to get my two sisters back, but she has my two sisters back now. Not in the greatest situation now, but she tries. My mom's a single mother at this point. I forgive my mother, but I wouldn't personally do what she let happen to my own kids. I would never let it happen to my own kids. I try to make empathy in the fact that my mom didn't have any resource and she didn't know where to go, and the domestic violence was also happening to her. So I I make that excuse for my peace of mind. Even though other mothers say often like I would never let my that happen to my kid. I would leave the man. I don't care. There's resources, but like, what if my mom really didn't know much about those resources, or she didn't feel so comfortable in using them? I
Mhm.
wouldn't personally, but yeah.
I feel you. So you were in foster care at this home. How was that situation at that home? I heard that there were knives, and it sounded pretty unsafe. So how did that foster care home end up going?
So then they ended up moving me from that foster home to another foster home where I was placed for a week until they could find me a further place. I remember the foster mom complaining on the phone, like, you need to take this kid. I took her for some extra vacation money, but I'm about to go on vacation. Yeah,
Dang.
yeah. So then from there, I got moved to my third placement. Mind you, this is like maybe like 3 months into me being in care. 3 months of me being in care, I've already been to three different placements. So this third placement I went to, they had multiple kids at once just stacked up in different beds, like, just, I think she was just genuinely profiting off these kids because she would feed us nothing but like just the cheapest, like, bake, like she would make those little Kraft mac and cheese, feed it all to all the kids. Like, there was over 12 kids all in one home,
Wow.
just bed to bed to bed, and it was just not a good situation. But I stuck through it for a month. I mean, I was just happy to be in a safer environment, I guess. So I wasn't too mad about it. Um, but then from that placement, I got placed to a more long term placement, which was supposed to be pre adoptive. It didn't work out. She was a great woman and everything, but by that point I had so much mental health issues from the stuff I had went through
Mhm.
that I was very suicidal and dealing with a lot of that. So the system was like, "Oh, well, she cannot be in a foster home. She needs to be in a group home where she can get therapy and this, that, and this." So that's when my group home journey begins, which was traumatizing. It was the first place I was put in was a group home called a Wixa. Um, I don't remember too much from that placement because I think there was like a lot of trauma from there, but it just got really bad at some point. So I don't remember too much from there. But my next experience from there was Parsons, which was a residential facility. Um, Being put in residential, um, there was a lot of things I had to like kind of learn. Um, the kids will take advantage of your vulnerabilities. it's an environment where they put kids with behavioral issues, people coming from JDs to a lower level. They shove kids with mental health issues. They shove kids with all different problems all in the same like environment just to clash heads. And I feel like that's a big problem with the system is that when there's these group home environments, they're not separated by the needs of the child. They're just shoving all of the problematic kids or kids that have some sort of emotional issues or whatever it is all in the same environment, and they don't all need the same treatment.
Hmm.
They giving them all the same treatment isn't going to work out. So in this residential, there was fights every day. The kids would pull the fire alarm a lot because it would unlock all the doors. So they would go and run around the whole offices with the doors, like just looking through papers and stuff, and just it was a chaotic environment, I
Mm.
guess.
No, that totally that's totally understandable. And when different group homes, I was in this one group home called Child Haven, and it was very similar. Um, it was just like there was nobody in control, and like the kids were kind of in control, right? And
Yes.
then like there was like one or two workers that were like really trying to do their job. Everybody else is just like they're chilling, like they were just there
Yeah,
for a
they're like,
check.
this is just my job. All my job is to write down on paper and send them up to the next level of care.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what it
So
tends to be.
so how old were you when you went there?
I was at that point 14 years old when I was put in residentials.
And how long were you in residential for?
I was in residential for 2 years.
Ooh.
And then I ended up from residential continuing in group homes until I was 18. I just signed out of foster care this Sunday.
Like just this Sunday.
Yes, just this Sunday. I'm in
Wow.
my
So wait,
dorms now.
do they offer in New York? They offer extended foster. Do they offer you extended foster care in New York?
Up
Did
until
you
you're
take extended
21,
foster?
yeah.
Did you take that or did you age out?
I took it as soon as I did at first. So then they put me in this apartment program, which was decent and whatever. But there were so many rules that continued to restrict me from being able
I've
to
heard
enjoy my
that.
lives and things like
I've heard
that.
that.
So in the supervised independent living program, the problem with it, I wanted to go have a sleepover with my friends because I've never had a sleepover. Being in foster care, people don't know, like being in foster care, every time you want to spend a night at somebody else's house, you need like them to identify that's a safe person. They need to
Hmm.
know like all of the contact. They need to see their ID and things like that. So it can be invasive when I'm trying to hang out with my college friends who don't really understand the foster care culture and the situation that I'm in. So when I'm trying to go hang out with my friends, is all this approval process for them to a lot of the time cancel at last minute. Um, and so I decided to sign myself out because it was easier to live in their care. Yeah, they provided the food and everything I needed. Like I still got a stipend for food. They still had my apartment, whatever, but I was paying the cost of not still being able to not live my life to the fullest, not be able to enjoy those childhood experiences that I missed out on in foster care.
And I can understand that. I've heard that before from other people on the show about how strenuous the aging out process can be, right? Or not even that, but like even in the extended foster care, you have to go to college and they expect a full-time job and then you have to be in this apartment and sometimes the
Mm-hmm.
apartments aren't great and all of these situations and like you said, the restrictions of your movements. And I think it's important for us to share your stories and your experiences because the extended foster care system is very new. Like it's only
Mm-hmm.
within the last 5 to 10 years where they're offering these programs. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's something that we should speak about and how we can improve the extended foster care programs. Because
Mm-hmm.
before then there was nothing. You just turned 18 and they just put you on the street, right?
Right.
So I think that maybe you know how you overcorrected. They were trying to correct an issue of a lot of foster youth being homeless,
Mm-hmm.
turning 18. So they like did this huge overcorrection. So like now they're just like, okay, we're gonna give them all these resources. We're gonna have all of these rules, regulations to keep them safe, right? But then, like you just said, girl, I waited till I was 18 so I get the hell out of here. I'm not gonna do it for
Right.
another 4 years, you
Right.
know? So I think if we had a mixture of having those access to those resources, right? Having the access to help for food and housing and college,
Mm-hmm.
but then also allowing you to be a young adult. You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
18, like it's like nobody wants to live with strict parents that aren't going to allow them to have a sleepover, right?
Yes.
So we definitely, I think it is very important for us to have this conversation. And you've educated me because extended foster care is something that I advocate for. I think that we should have these programs for kids, but it's good hearing from your perspective because I didn't get offered those resources. So I don't
Hmm.
know the strains and the issues with it. So it's good that you're sharing that with me because I can now forward that information to the masses and to the people who are running these programs. Like, hey, y'all need to chill out a little bit. Like,
A
they can't
hundred
even have
percent. Yeah.
sleepovers. Like, y'all need to chill out. So you exited the program. Um, are you involved with your birth parents? Do you rely any on like any other foster parents that were good to you? Like, how is your situation now?
So I contact my mom. I still contact her. She can't be too much of a financial support because she's struggling herself, but she's there for emotional support and whatnot. And then some foster families I just contact time to time to get in touch with. Financial support wise, I rely on my college. So I'm in college now. I'm in a dorm. I'm able to dorm all year round, even during the recess breaks and whatnot. Because fortunately the college I go to has a high homeless rate because it's actually 50% of people that go to this college come from minority backgrounds. So they do. I'm fortunate to go to a college that offers a lot of support through that. Plus, I'm also through the EOP program, which is a program, educational opportunity program, which helps pay off college and whatnot. So I don't pay for my college. I have to pay like $147, which is like nothing.
But that's
Um,
amazing.
yeah. But they support me with like food and whatnot. And if I need like other supports like shampoo and whatnot, they help support me. And then aside from that, I've been trying to search around, find a job locally, but in New York it's not as easy sometimes, especially around the areas that are highly populated with college students because it can becomes competitive.
Hmm. Absolutely. And is it better for you socially now? Like, you're just like a regular college kid. And
Yeah.
and it sounds like, the ELP program sounds a little bit like benefits because you get your dorm, you get food
Hmm.
assistance, you get college assistance. So it sounds very similar to uh the extended foster care programs, but it sounds like you
Yes.
just get to be more like less restrictive now.
Yeah, and EOP works a lot with foster youth. That's one of the people that they primarily populations of people that they accept. So they used to have a specialized foster youth program, but they've kind of ran low on foster care applicants because not many of us really graduate high school and whatnot.
Okay, and then going back, circling back a little bit into these group homes, what type of experiences? I know you touched on it a little bit, but like what type of like experiences did you have in these group homes?
So there was a lot of things that happened around me rather than to me. I was fortunate to have a good head on my shoulders. What I mean by like more around me than to me was I watched most of my peers suffer and it hurt me so much because I was emotionally intelligent or I was able to deal with my trauma enough that um and I had enough guidance. I feel like that was the big thing. I had enough guidance. Not all of these girls had a lot of support, and all the support came just from the system itself, and they didn't trust the system. That was the big thing. Is I don't they don't trust these people, and this is the only people that they have around them to support them. Um, so a lot of girls I contact even to this day have I've talked to one of the girls from one of my group homes.
Mhm.
One of them is homeless. Um, one of them is dead um, in a car accident that happened on an AWOL. They all stole a car, did not know how to drive a car. Um, one of the girls that I spoke to from group homes is one of them is locked up. The other one, shoot, this one girl, she's doing okay. One of my yeah, I'm just speaking. Sorry from I'm sorry, I'm getting nervous.
No, you're all right. Take your time.
So being in group homes, it was intimidating. I had to learn this is what I want to write a book about one day. I had to learn how to not become institutionalized in an institutionalized environment. And that was the problem
Mhm.
with most of the youth. They were placed in from a really young age into group home environment.
Yep.
There were there's this big dog thing and there's the scapegoat in the situation. There's such a social hierarchy when you're in a group home. So there was a lot of like fights and stuff that like just resulted from tiny things, and it just was because there was nothing to do. They had these kids all in the house with all these issues and not enough things to do, not enough things to do throughout the day. They went to school, we came back, and there wasn't enough outings on the weekends. A lot of the times the girls would get in trouble, so we wouldn't have outings or things to work for on the weekends. Um, so we were stuck in the house bored, and that was when the the fighting like just begins. Like,
Hmm.
um, I don't even know where a good place to start with it would be, but um,
And you sound a lot like myself, because when I found myself in like the troubled teen institution, I was like 13 years old, and I went to this camp in Wyoming that was like a troubled teen camp and like a wilderness camp. And what I learned was like, and I learned from being institutionalized in foster care and like group homes and mental institutions. The more you push back, the more it's going, like the worse. Like you're just, the more you push back, the worse it will be. Keep your
mhm,
head down, stay out of the
mhm,
trouble, like look at the trouble, be around it, but just stay out of it. Just
yes,
mind your business
mhm,
and like stay under the radar. And it kind of sounds like that's what you did too, was kind of like mind your business, stay under the radar.
a hundred
um
percent.
and just kind of know that you will grow through this as you go through this. And
Well, yeah. So the way that I learned to separate myself from that social hierarchy was being like, they're what they're saying of me doesn't really matter. I don't know where this person's going to end up in life. I don't know what they're going through. They're speaking from emotion. And I especially had to remind myself of that when I turned 18, because 18 is when kids can take advantage of, oh, you're 18. If you, I can hit you if I'm under 18, but you can't hit me, because then
mm,
assault charges come in. There's this 15-year-old I had to remind myself every time. She would just get angry and she would take it out on me because I tend to be the quiet one of the group. And we were friends on and off in this situation. All of your group home friends are very on and off. They're not really your friends. They're very friendly one day, and then the next day have a meeting. They get aggravated, and now everybody's their enemy.
mhm.
Um, but um, these shit.
No, it's okay.
But this kid had lost their mother. So I was just thinking of it from a perspective of they just lost, they're going through a loss, so they're taking their anger out on me. And a lot of the time, once I turned 18, she would threaten me a lot. But I kept very low profile. The way I ended up avoiding becoming institutionalized is by separating myself from the group. Let them say what they say now, because if I entertain it, it's only going to make it worse. If I stay out of it, they'll pass and they'll go find another person to bother, because that's really what it's about, is finding some type of entertainment and challenging the next person and becoming like boosting whatever ego. And the ego comes from fear. The ego comes from fear that these other kids could hurt. It's never a evil thing of any of them. All of the girls are just trying to protect themselves from being scapegoated or being bullied in that environment. So they try to build up this big shield and of an ego, so um I learned to just stay out of it. I did my own thing. I was constantly going to the gym. I would go from school, go right to work, and then I would go to the gym until like 10 p.m. and walk home at 10 p.m. and just go right to bed, because I wanted to avoid as much conflict as I could. Now that's when I had freedom in the group home environment. When I didn't have that freedom to go to work and to go to the gym on my own time, because it was something that takes forever to earn privilege wise. When you're in a group home, they don't let you even walk out the door without a staff by your side. Otherwise, you're usually AWOL unless you end up earning privileges to be able to go out on your own. Um, so before, when I didn't have privileges to go out on my own, it was a harsh environment. And, I struggled more with separating myself. I was getting into fights as well. And I didn't want to get into fights. I wanted to avoid it, but you try to fight back, to get that sense of safety, um, that you can defend yourself, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That makes sense. And I hate that, I understand why privileges have to be earned. I just wish that it didn't take such a long process. Or like one thing that I do, especially with like the kids that I work with, or even my niece when she was here, I gave all the privileges. Privileges are removed if you can't
Hmm.
handle them, right? So
Right.
we went very much like you have all your privileges, and if you
Hmm.
are responsible, you keep them, and if you don't, then we start to reduce privileges, right? And then you
Hmm.
can earn them back. I think that that would be more successful for foster youth because a
And
lot of things are already taken, and some kids will
hmm.
run away. Some kids will
Hmm.
do bad things, but then take their privileges, right?
Right.
Don't start everybody off at no privileges and make you wait and work so
And
long.
even that leads to the issues. There's kids put in here into a house full of people they don't know. They don't have a phone to contact the people they do know. They don't have their close relationships or their closer supports close enough. So they run away to get a phone. They go on AWOLs to get a phone. And once you go down that route of AWOLing, it becomes addictive for a lot of youth. It wasn't for me, but for a lot of youth, I can understand why. It's just a sense of freedom. Even when I was walking out on my free time, it's just like so freeing to walk down the street without so many people attached to you,
Mm,
like behind you, watching you all the time. Like that alone time is freeing. So I could understand why like one AWOL to go get a phone would lead to constant AWOLs to go out, get drunk to get that feeling away, or to go get, like, some of the girls would even go out to go seek love. And it was so sad because I knew this one girl who like was just so harshly bullied by this group of staff we had. We and most of my group homes were okay, but my last group home, all of the staff ended up getting fired. The staff were just getting burnt out. We had a really bad group of girls, but it didn't justify what they were doing. They egged on this situation. They would egg on these arguments, like it was a reality TV show. Like toying with these kids' emotions and watching them fight was an entertainment for them. Um, Especially when they didn't like the kid, they like to write their reports down to get them removed as soon as possible.
mm,
Um, we had a group of staff that would egg on a lot of arguments between girls and just start them and tell the girls like leave, walk out the door, and then proceed to say this kid ran away. You just told them they should leave and they didn't. Nobody wanted them here, and then you're gonna go write about how they ran away.
mm,
And
mm.
I was like,
False
it
reporting. That's
was.
just that. Yeah, then no wonder they all got fired.
Mm-hmm.
No
And
wonder they
at
all got
one
fired.
point, it ended up leading to there was a lot of like fights that happened, but there's this one girl who has like more of like I think she had like some type of autism or some type of disability where she wasn't very aware of social cues and whatnot. She was going through the staff's shopping bag, giggling. She's like, "I'm gonna go through a shopping bag." She's like, "Don't touch my shopping bag. I will get mad." And she was like, "I'm gonna go through a shopping bag." And mind you, these staff went out and shopped by themselves while one staff stayed back. Y'all getting paid, like these people are, these girls want to go outside on the weekends, and y'all are getting paid to go out shopping with just your other staff buddy and leaving one staff behind. um but then we can't go on outings. um this girl is playing with her stuff, and then at some point the staff snaps, attacks the girl, and the other staff separated her and told the staff to go home. Mind you, this was not reported at all. I didn't know it was not reported because I spoke about it in my therapy session. They're like, wait, this happened. And I'm
Mm,
like, wait, it wasn't reported. And
dang.
so they're so quick to report when a kid gets in an altercation, but not quick to report when another staff gets in an altercation.
That's always blaming the kid. Well, Jasmine, we're going to take a quick break. When we come right back, I want you to tell us more about your plan on how to take positive steps to fix the system
Hmm.
and how we can make it a little bit better for foster youth like ourselves. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
All right.
Awesome. Did you need to take a break, go to the bathroom, get water, or anything?
Smoking.
That's fine. Hey, listen, you're young. I don't judge. Um, After you're done, we can just go. I'll redo the countdown and we'll go right back in.
All right.
If you guys are on TikTok, you can go on YouTube right below. Click the link in the bio. You can watch it live. I haven't figured out how to stream it live on TikTok yet. I'm working on it. All right, are you ready, Jasmine?
Yes.
Awesome. So we're going to do a quick countdown. Five, four, three, two, one. Welcome back, Lightshiners, to the Wards of the State podcast. Make sure you guys are leaving a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star rating and reviews on Apple Podcasts, and make sure you're subscribing to us on YouTube, where you can now watch the episodes. If you want to join in every Tuesday and Thursday, we usually have at least one episode a week. So make sure you are following me on social media. Also, if you are following me on social media, as of today, as if you're listening to this podcast, there will be a link in the in my bio for you to get monthly newsletters. We are starting out with a monthly newsletter called the Ward Connection, where we will just be going over like the things that are happening in the community, some movies, books, podcasts that you guys should listen to. We will also be highlighting former foster youth and adoptees every month, as well as just letting you guys know what's the upcoming events. We have a lot of upcoming events this year. So make sure you guys are going to the link in my bio and submitting your email for to get the newsletter, the Ward Connection. Um, so without further ado, I want to get back to Jasmine's story. So Jasmine, we heard your story about your experience with your birth family and your experience through a few foster homes and group homes. What do you think we need to do, or what type of, from your lived experience, what type of processes or policy changes need to be made for the embezzlement of the system for foster youth?
So the first most important thing that I think would help all parts of foster care that is most important is increasing the budget. The reason I say that is because nothing is adjusted to inflation. We are taking care of children and their well-being and raising them, but we're not adjusting the prices that we give them for clothing. We're not adjusting the prices we put into their outings and things, but the prices are raising everywhere. So to take care of these youth, we need to be able to increase the amount of money we are putting into foster care to continue to do that. Big thing we need to do is also, I feel like, promote fostering kids more, especially teenagers. When we're promoting foster care, we need to include more teenagers while we're advertising, because it's a big population that needs to be seen. And a lot of the time, I know a lot of people who have said they've wanted to adopt or wanted to foster so bad, but just didn't know how to do it. So we definitely need to advertise how to better do that to keep kids that don't need to be in group home settings into foster home settings, because this group home trauma just introduces a new level of trauma to children that they don't need to be in, and the lack of foster parents just keeps increasing. So we just keep putting more and more kids that don't need to be put through that trauma into group home settings. And
So, so there's a conversation right now happening in the foster care community about returning to group home or orphanages instead of foster homes, because we all know that any situation can be dangerous, but foster excuse me, foster homes particularly, there's no oversight. So even though you might have some bad staff at a group home, there is, excuse me again, there is some oversight, right? And someone to report to. So where do we, Jesus Christ, I have the sneezes. Where do we find the in between? Because I agree with you. We need more foster parents, but not just more foster parents. We need qualified foster parents who are
mhm,
trauma informed, who are doing it for the right reason.
mhm,
I also believe
100%.
that foster parenting should be federalized, so they can be federal employees. They can get their own separate check. I do believe it's a job. I think it's a job to take care of traumatized children. I think that'll reduce the amount of people doing it just for the money, because now they
Mhm,
actually have a federal job that they can get consequences for, abusing the children, not treating them fairly, misusing the finances.
mhm.
But what do you say to people who say, like, hey, we have too many unregulated foster parents, and at least in group homes, you can, one, if you have sibling groups, you can stay with your
Mhm.
siblings, and then two, there are more accesses to uh, people who are at first reporters, mandated reporters. You have more access to your mandated reporters. What do you say to that?
So I think that could work, but the group home systems would have to be fixed before to make that possible. And in the group homes, I feel like they need to be more separated by need. They need more group homes and more that are separated by need. So they'll have group homes that um like our safe harbor, but then they'll have group homes that are like just behavioral, and they're throwing kids with mental health issues and kids coming from juvenile detentions in the same environment, same treatment, but needing different individualized treatment. I feel like they also need to like almost decrease the sizes of some group homes, because I felt like the smaller group homes I was in, where there was like 5 kids at once, was better managed. I mean, it was, there was multiple houses, but there was just less kids in that environment, so they got more individualized care from the staff that were there.
Hmm.
I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done in group homes before we can rely on them to take care of all types of kids, because if we're putting a kid that is might have a little bit of trauma, of course, because being put in foster care itself is traumatic. Being removed from parents in general is traumatic for whatever reason you're removed for. But putting them in an environment with kids that are coming from juvenile detentions, which is my big problem with family court and the JD system being so close together, is that they send them to the same place,
Hmm.
and they have different needs. So I feel like that could definitely work, but even in some group homes, they won't take all siblings at once. So we would need group homes that can do things like that. And you know, um I just feel like there has to be a lot more money invested into creating better group home programs, and you know more separated, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
that totally makes sense. The one group home that I went to, it was girls and boys. They had a girl side and a boy side, so we were able to stay together as siblings. But there were definitely some issues, like some of the ones that you said, kids just fighting and starting issues because we didn't have any outings. But I think Child Haven did a great job, at least trying their best to make sure that we were
Hmm.
safe and that we had adequate outings and things like that. So I definitely agree. What are you familiar with programs like what is it called, Boys Town in Nebraska, where like it's like a group home city. So like they buy
Hmm.
like whole subdivisions, and they're like 10 to 12
That's
houses, and they have a
cool.
school, and they have a library and a movie theater. So it's like a compound for foster youth
Hmm.
essentially. And everyone there are volunteers, and they kind of live in homes. You have like these house parents,
Hmm.
and they just kind of take care of the kids that come through the house. But the cool thing about them is that you can go back once you age out if you want to just like go back for holiday and things. But I have always thought about like, instead of just like facilities, we need to really think about like, especially how many kids we have in care. If each city just had like a foster neighborhood, like this whole
Hmm.
neighborhood is just fostering, and we can really just make sure that it was separated by homes. Like we can have one
Hmm.
home with just for like really for kids who just need just light trauma therapy, other
Yeah.
kids who need like really a lot of intensive care, right? And then
Hmm.
also I think it'll just create camaraderie, because if you have a community of people who are all looking out for each other, then yeah, you
Hmm.
can go down the street and go to the park because we're all part of the same community. So I
Hmm.
think that we could look at that, but like you said, we got to fix the issues that are currently, and even in these, we can't increase the size of these programs if we can't even control them in a small building, right?
Right.
So I think that you're very correct, and it's so encouraging as a 33-year-old man to hear young people like yourself who just got out of the system to have already have these conversations with you, and you guys are thinking of a solution already. Like that is phenomenal, and
Yeah.
I'm so proud that the generation after mine, you guys are really you're really coming up and saying like we're going to do something, and not only are we just going to complain, we are actually thinking of logical uh, solutions that could
Hmm.
work, but we got to take some steps. So
Hmm.
Jasmine, I always ask every guest in the podcast if there was one thing that you could say, or a piece of advice that you could give to a youth who kind of grew up in your similar situation. What piece of advice would you give them?
Don't let your paper define you. They will write shitty things in your paper that when you're presented to placements or foster placements and they don't want to take you for whatever is written in your document, that's not you. That is not the only things that define you. Every other kid has their meltdowns. Every other kid has their really hardships, and especially when you're put through trauma, they're going to be more intense than a normal child. um just don't let that impact your sense of self-worth, because I let that for the longest, like impact my self-worth, and just thinking that I was just defined by that piece of paper. But that's there, in life people are going to see beyond that. People are not looking at a piece of paper when you're presented at a job interview of all the meltdowns you had through childhood and um all the little things you went through. They're not looking at that. So don't let that paper define you. That's not exactly who you are.
I love that. I love that. And I want to encourage you and I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jasmine, and sharing your lived experience and just like the reality of some of these group homes. And I also like that you acknowledge that the system is fixable. We can create a more positive experience for foster youth. And I think it's important for us as
Yes.
former foster youth to say that there is way to change, because I think a lot of people just think of the foster care system like, oh, it's horrible, it's too bad, we can't change it. No, we can. We
We
really
can, but
can.
we don't have enough voices out there that are willing to advocate and do the work and getting it out to the right people. That's what it comes down to. I'm trying to go to college right now to become a policymaker for OCFS, and then
I love that.
eventually I want to write my own books and do my own speeches on like what really needs to be fixed. And I still have a lot to educate myself on because I have my own experience bias, but I'm learning as I go, and I'm hoping to help all ways around the staff and programs and the kids, because in those situations I've talked to a lot of staff. I still talk to a lot of my staff, where a lot of the times it's just what's written on paper that prevents them from doing what they want to do. So as the staff
Mhm.
that were going the extra mile, that got in trouble for going the extra mile. I knew somebody who went above and beyond on my case, telling my mom things she wasn't really supposed to know, but because my mom actually cared in that situation, and the system, hadn't communicated with her. But she was a mother before she was a social worker. She was a mother before she was a social worker, which I think ended up getting her fired for her trying to do what was not in her job description. So, but I still talk to my staff. So I definitely want to change in that sense. What more can the people who work in the actual field and talk to the kids every day do? Because those are the people who work with them every day and know what's best, and they can't make any type of decision.
I love that. I love that. And as an author who speaks and write books on my experience and speaks at engagements, you already are light years ahead of what I was when I was your age. So by the time you get my age, you should be at Congress running the roost. So I'm so excited to see, Jasmine, what you do in the future, and you have my full support. I encourage you to write your book. I encourage you to finish your schooling, and as you're doing that, continue to advocate for yourself and for former foster youth. And I want to thank you again for coming on War to the State podcast. And I just want to just say, like I say every week, y'all, Jasmine is a shining light. Like, she just inspired me, because it's so great to see young folks just really just doing the work and understanding that it's going to be hard, and not coming at it at a negative aspect, but you really coming at it at a positive aspect of how we can improve the system. So I want to thank you so much, Jasmine. And I want to
Thank
just
you.
remind you to always shine your light. Okay, love?
All right. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for this opportunity.
My pleasure. Awesome. That was awesome, Jasmine. You're gonna do great things. I cannot wait to see what you do in the future. Your episode will probably come out next week. So be on